The morning sky over New York City changed forever when the first shadow appeared. It was Tuesday, October 15th, 2157, and office workers rushing to their jobs stopped on the sidewalks to stare up at something impossible. A massive shape moved across the sun, blocking out the light like a dark cloud that had no right to be there. Admiral Jake Morrison was drinking his third cup of coffee in the United Earth Defense Force Command Center when the alarm started screaming. Red lights flashed across every screen in the room as his communications officer, Lieutenant Amy Foster, turned to him with wide eyes. "Sir, we have multiple unknown contacts entering Earth's atmosphere," she said, her voice shaking slightly. "They're huge, Admiral, bigger than anything we've ever built." Jake set down his coffee cup and walked to the main display screen. What he saw made his stomach drop. 12 enormous vessels hung in the sky above major cities around the world. Each ship was at least 2 miles long, their hulls gleaming with a strange silver metal that seemed to shift and change in the sunlight. They moved with perfect precision, settling into formation as if they had done this 1,000 times before. "Get me President Carter on the secure line," Jake ordered. "And wake up every military commander on the planet. This is not a drill." The alien ships positioned themselves above New York, London, Tokyo, Moscow, Beijing, and 7 other major cities. They made no aggressive moves, but their presence was impossible to ignore. News networks around the world interrupted their regular programming to show the massive vessels, hanging silently in the sky like sleeping giants. In Washington, D.C., President Lisa Carter was pulled from an important budget meeting by her security team. They rushed her to the underground situation room where screens showed the alien ships from every angle. Her face was calm, but her hands trembled slightly as she reached for the red phone that connected her to world leaders. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said to the room full of advisors and military officials, "I think it's safe to say this is the most important day in human history." Dr. Nathan Brooks, Earth's top expert on the possibility of alien life, was teaching a class at Columbia University when his assistant burst into the lecture hall. The young man whispered something in his ear that made Dr. Brooks go pale. He looked at his students, then at the screens showing news footage of the ships. "Class dismissed," he said quietly. "Go home to your families." For 6 hours, the ships remained silent. People gathered in the streets, pointing up at the sky and taking pictures. Some prayed, others celebrated, and many just stood in shocked silence. The stock markets crashed and recovered 3 times as panic and excitement fought for control of human emotions. Then, at exactly 3 p.m. Eastern Time, every television, radio, computer, and communication device on Earth received the same signal. The transmission was so powerful that even devices that were turned off suddenly came to life. The voice that spoke was clearly not human, but the words were perfectly understandable in every language on Earth. The aliens had somehow mastered every human tongue in a matter of hours. "People of Earth," the voice said, deep and musical but with strange echoes that made it sound like multiple speakers talking at once. "We are the Zephyrian Collective. We come to you in peace and friendship. Today marks the first contact between our 2 species." In his command center, Jake Morrison exchanged glances with his staff. First contact. The words every human had wondered about for centuries were finally being spoken by someone from another world. The alien voice continued. "We have been watching your world from a distance for many years. Your species has grown and learned much. We believe you are now ready to join the greater community of intelligent life that exists among the stars." President Carter listened to the broadcast from her secure bunker, surrounded by advisors who were frantically taking notes. The Secretary of Defense, General Kevin Price, leaned over to whisper in her ear, "Madam President, they say they've been watching us. Our intelligence agencies have no record of any alien surveillance." "How is that possible?" the alien broadcast went on. "We offer you knowledge, technology, and friendship. We can teach you to travel between the stars as we do. We can share medical advances that will end disease and extend your lives. We can show you wonders beyond your imagination." Dr. Brooks was now in a government car racing toward Washington. As he listened to the alien message on the radio, something bothered him. The aliens spoke of traveling between stars as if it were common, but they made it sound like humans had never left their own planet. That wasn't entirely true. Humans had built stations on the Moon and Mars and had sent probes to other star systems. But, the alien voice said, and the word carried a weight that made everyone listening feel uneasy, such gifts come with responsibilities. Your world must agree to certain boundaries and rules that govern civilized species. You must accept guidance from those who have walked among the stars longer than you have dreamed. The message ended there, leaving Earth in stunned silence. Within minutes, every phone in the government was ringing. World leaders called each other, scientists demanded emergency meetings, and military commanders prepared for whatever might come next. In a small office buried deep beneath the Global Security Agency building in Virginia, Director Helen Murphy sat staring at her computer screen. She had been analyzing every second of the alien transmission, looking for clues about their technology and intentions. What she found made her blood run cold. The flight patterns of the alien ships matched. Something in her classified files. Something that shouldn't exist if this really was first contact. She pulled up a document dated from 2089, marked with the highest security classification. The file described experimental human spacecraft using similar approach vectors and formation. Flying techniques. Helen picked up her secure phone and dialed a number that very few people on Earth even knew existed. When the voice answered, she took a deep breath. Danny, I need you in my office right now. Bring everything we have on Project Starway, all of it. High above the Earth, the alien ships waited for humanity's response. Inside their command vessel, the Zephyrian ambassador studied reports about Earth's military capabilities and industrial capacity. Everything seemed to be going according to plan. The humans appeared properly impressed and intimidated by their arrival. What the ambassador didn't know was that at that very moment, light years away from Earth, other humans were reading the same reports about the Zephyrian fleet. Humans who had been living among the stars for over 60 years, and who knew the Zephyrians much better than Earth did. The game was about to change in ways that neither Earth nor the Zephyrian collective could imagine. As night fell over half the planet, people looked up at the alien ships with wonder and fear. Tomorrow would bring negotiations that would determine humanity's future among the stars. But tonight, in a secret facility on the dark side of the Moon, ancient human technology was powering up for the first time in decades, preparing to send a message to the stars that would shatter everything the Zephyrians thought they knew about the species they had just contacted. 3 days had passed since the alien ships arrived over Earth. The world held its breath as governments tried to decide how to respond to the Zephyrian offer. President Carter had called for an emergency meeting of all world leaders, but Helen Murphy was not thinking about diplomacy. She was thinking about the files hidden deep in her office vault. Danny Walsh arrived at the Global Security Agency building before dawn. He was a quiet man who could break any code and find patterns in the most complex data. Helen had worked with him for 15 years, and she trusted him more than anyone else in the intelligence community. What's so urgent that you dragged me out of bed at 4 in the morning? Danny asked as he followed Helen through the underground corridors. Something's wrong with the alien story, Helen said, her voice echoing off the concrete walls. They claim this is first contact, but I found flight patterns in our old files that match exactly what those ships did when they arrived. They entered Helen's office, a small room filled with computers and filing cabinets that contained some of the most secret information on Earth. Helen pulled out a thick folder marked Project Starway, Eyes Only, and placed it on the desk between them. Danny opened the folder and began reading. His eyes grew wide as he turned each page. Helen, this says we've had faster-than-light travel since 2089. That's almost 70 years ago. How is that possible? Keep reading, Helen said, pulling up files on her computer. It gets stranger. The documents told an incredible story. In the 1970s, a secret international group of scientists had begun working on theoretical physics that most people thought was impossible. They studied quantum mechanics and spacetime in ways that had never been tried before. By the 2080s, they had built the first working faster-than-light engine. Dr. Rebecca Stone, a historian who specialized in classified government projects, arrived at Helen's office 2 hours later. She had been studying secret programs for 20 years, but she had never heard of Project Starway. "Look at this," Rebecca said, pointing to a document dated 2089. "The first test flight went to Alpha Centauri and back in 6 months. But there's no record of any announcement to the public. Why would they keep something this important secret?" Helen pulled up more files on her computer. "Because they didn't stop with one test flight. According to these records, they launched 12 colony ships between 2089 and 2095. Each ship carried 10,000 people and enough supplies to start a new civilization." Danny was studying a technical report about the quantum drives used by the colony ships. "These engines are incredibly advanced. The power requirements alone should have been impossible with 2089 technology. Someone made a major breakthrough that we've never heard about." The three of them worked through the morning, piecing together a story that seemed impossible but was supported by detailed documentation. The colony ships had been launched in complete secrecy, with only a few dozen people on Earth knowing the truth. The colonists were volunteers who agreed to leave Earth forever to ensure humanity's survival if something terrible happened to the home planet. "This makes no sense," Rebecca said, reading a memo from the project director. "Why launch 12 colony ships and then pretend it never happened? Why not tell the world that humanity had achieved interstellar travel?" Helen found part of the answer in a classified report from 2096. The project was shut down after the 12th ship launched. The report says there were concerns about alien contact. They were afraid that if other species learned about human expansion too soon, it could lead to war. While Helen and her team uncovered the truth about Project Starway, Admiral Morrison was dealing with a more immediate problem. The Zephyrian ships had begun scanning Earth with some kind of advanced sensor technology. The scans were not hostile, but they were incredibly detailed. Lieutenant Amy Foster brought Morrison the latest sensor reports. "Admiral, they're mapping every military installation, every space facility, and every major industrial center on the planet. It's like they're creating a complete inventory of our capabilities." Morrison studied the data on his screen. "The aliens seemed particularly interested in specific locations that didn't make obvious sense. Why would they spend so much time scanning empty areas in Nevada, Australia, and Siberia?" "Amy, get me the coordinates of every location they've scanned for more than 5 minutes," Morrison ordered. "I want to know what they're looking for." Meanwhile, Captain Roy Hansen was experiencing something strange aboard the International Space Station. His crew had been monitoring the alien ships from orbit, but they had also detected unusual energy signatures coming from the far side of the moon. "Captain," called Kevin Price, the station's communications specialist, "I'm picking up signals that look almost like human technology, but they're coming from coordinates where nothing should exist." Amy Foster, the station's engineer, was running diagnostics on their sensors. "The energy patterns are similar to our fusion reactors, but much more advanced. It's like someone took our technology and improved it by 50 years. Roy moved to the observation window and looked toward the moon. During the lunar night cycle, the far side was completely dark, but their sensors showed something was definitely there. Something big. "Kevin, can you boost our signal strength and try to get a better reading on whatever's over there?" "I can try, but Captain, there's something else. The signal patterns I'm detecting. They're using human communication protocols. Old ones from the 2090s. Back on Earth, Helen Murphy was making connections that sent chills down her spine. The locations the aliens were scanning matched the coordinates of the old Project Starway launch facilities. Facilities that had been built in secret and then supposedly abandoned 70 years ago. "Danny, look at this," she said, pointing to her screen. "The aliens are scanning the exact spots where the colony ships were launched. How could they know about those locations unless they've encountered our ships before?" Danny was studying the technical specifications of the colony ships. Helen, according to these files, each ship was equipped with long-range sensors and communication equipment. If they're still out there, they might be able to monitor Earth from wherever they ended up. Dr. Stone found another disturbing piece of information. The project files mentioned something called Protocol 7. It was a plan for the colonies to return to Earth if the home planet was ever threatened by alien contact. But all the details about Protocol 7 have been redacted. The implications were staggering. If human colonies really existed among the stars and if they had been monitoring Earth for decades, then they would know about the Zephyrian arrival. The question was whether they would do anything about it. That evening, President Carter received a briefing that changed everything. Helen Murphy and her team presented their findings to the President and her top advisors in a secure conference room deep beneath the White House. "Madam President," Helen said, "we have evidence that humans have been living in space for nearly 70 years. If our analysis is correct, the Zephyrians are not making first contact with humanity. They're making first contact with Earth, but humanity is already out there among the stars." General Price leaned forward in his chair. "Are you telling us that while these aliens were approaching Earth, there might be human colonies watching them? Colonies that Earth knows nothing about?" That's exactly what we're telling you," Rebecca Stone replied. "And if the colony ships were equipped with the technology described in these files, they're probably more advanced than anything Earth has today." President Carter was quiet for a long moment. The Zephyrians expected an answer from Earth within 48 hours. They wanted humanity to accept their guidance and agree to territorial boundaries that would limit human expansion. But what if humanity had already expanded far beyond what the aliens imagined? "We need to know if these colonies really exist," the President said finally. "And we need to know before we give the Zephyrians our answer." High above Earth, the Zephyrian commander was reviewing the sensor data from their scans. Everything seemed normal for a species that had never left its home system. But deep in the data, there were small anomalies that bothered the science team. Energy signatures that were almost familiar, technology patterns that seemed more advanced than they should be for a planet that had supposedly never traveled to the stars. The commander decided the anomalies were not important. After all, they had been monitoring Earth for years, and they had never detected any human presence beyond the local solar system. The idea that these primitive people could have achieved interstellar travel without the Zephyrian collective knowing about it was absurd. But in the cold darkness beyond Pluto, ancient human sensors were watching the alien fleet with great interest. And in colonies scattered across the galaxy, humans who had never seen Earth were making preparations for a reunion that would shock two civilizations. Commander Jack Turner stood on the observation deck of Haven Prime Station and watched the sunrise over the planet his people had called home for 62 years. The star was different from Earth's sun, burning with a slightly orange light that painted the sky in colors no human had seen before leaving the homeworld. Below him, cities built by human hands stretched across continents that had never known war or pollution. Haven Prime was the largest of the 12 human colonies, home to over 2 million people who had been born among the stars. Jack had been only 8 years old when his family arrived on the colony ship New Dawn in 2095. Now he was 55. Gray-haired and weathered by a lifetime of building a new world, his communication device buzzed with an urgent message from Dr. Monica Bell, the colony's chief scientist. Jack had known Monica since they were teenagers working in the agricultural domes. She was brilliant, curious, and had a talent for spotting trouble before anyone else saw it coming. "Jack, you need to get to the communications center immediately." Monica's voice was tight with worry. "We're receiving signals from Earth that you're not going to believe." Jack took the transport pod through Haven Prime's underground tunnels to the massive communications complex built into the mountains north of the main city. The facility was one of the most advanced in human space, capable of monitoring signals from across the galaxy. When Jack arrived, he found Monica and her team gathered around displays showing data from their long-range sensors. "Show me what you found," Jack said, studying the worried faces around him. Monica pulled up a series of images on the main screen. They showed massive alien ships hanging in space above Earth's major cities. The ships were clearly not human in design, and their positioning suggested they were not there for a friendly visit. The signals started 3 days ago, Monica explained. 12 alien vessels entered Earth's solar system and positioned themselves over population centers. They're claiming to be making first contact with humanity. Jack felt his stomach drop. After 70 years of secrecy, alien contact with Earth was the scenario every colony leader had feared most. Are they hostile? We don't know yet, Monica said, pulling up more data. But Jack, there's something else. The ships match the design and energy signatures of vessels we've encountered before. These are Zephyrian collective ships. The name made everyone in the room go silent. The human colonies had first encountered the Zephyrians 15 years ago when a Zephyrian exploration fleet had discovered the colony of New Texas. The meeting had been tense but peaceful, with both sides agreeing to respect each other's territory and maintain limited trade relations. The Zephyrians know about us, Jack said slowly. They've known about human colonies for 15 years. So why are they telling Earth this is first contact? Dr. Bell brought up another display showing communication intercepts from the Zephyrian fleet. Based on what we're hearing, they're not mentioning the colonies at all. They're presenting themselves as humanity's first contact with alien life and offering to guide Earth into galactic civilization. Jack understood the implications immediately. The Zephyrians were lying to Earth, pretending that humans had never left their home system. But why? What did they gain by keeping the colonies secret? In the colony shipyards orbiting Haven Prime, Admiral Pete Collins was reaching the same conclusions. Pete commanded the colonial fleet from his flagship Voyager's Dream, a massive vessel that had been built entirely in space using resources from asteroid mining and advanced manufacturing techniques that Earth had never developed. Pete was reviewing reports from his intelligence officers when Jack's message arrived. The situation was worse than he had initially thought. The Zephyrians weren't just making contact with Earth, they were positioning themselves as Earth's guides and protectors, which meant they wanted to control humanity's entry into galactic politics. Get me a secure channel to all colony commanders, Pete ordered his communications officer, Lieutenant Kate Williams. We need an emergency conference within the hour. Kate was one of the best communications specialists in the colonial fleet. She had been born on New Texas colony and had never seen Earth, but she felt a deep connection to humanity's homeworld. Her fingers flew over her controls as she established contact with the other 11 human colonies scattered across dozens of star systems. Within an hour, the colonial leadership was connected in a holographic conference that spanned light years of space. 12 colony commanders, their chief scientists, and fleet admirals appeared as three-dimensional images around a virtual conference table. The situation is clear, Admiral Collins began. The Zephyrians are deceiving Earth about first contact, while positioning themselves to control human development. We have to decide if we're going to maintain our secrecy or reveal ourselves to protect the homeworld. Commander Sarah Davis of New California Colony was the first to speak. We followed the non-interference protocol for 70 years. Our founders believed it was necessary to protect both Earth and the colonies from exactly this kind of situation. But the situation has changed, argued Commander Mike Johnson from the Frontier Station. Earth is facing contact whether we interfere or not. The question is whether they face it alone or with our support. Dr. Bell joined the conference from Haven Prime and shared her analysis of the Zephyrian communications. Based on their previous behavior with other species, the Zephyrians typically approach younger civilizations and offer partnership while actually establishing dominance. They're not interested in equality, they want subjects. The debate continued for 2 hours as colony leaders weighed the risks of revealing themselves against the dangers of letting Earth face the Zephyrians alone. Finally, Admiral Collins called for a decision. We take a vote, he said. All in favor of maintaining secrecy and non-interference? 3 colonies voted to maintain the old protocols. all in favor of revealing ourselves to both Earth and the Zephyrians. 9 colonies voted to break their 70-year silence. Lieutenant Tony Rodriguez was in the pilot-ready room aboard Voyager's Dream when the decision came down. Tony was 28 years old, born and raised in space, and was considered one of the best scout pilots in the colonial fleet. His parents had been asteroid miners, and he had grown up flying small ships through dangerous asteroid fields and debris clouds. "Rodriguez, you're up," called Commander Lisa Hayes, the flight operations officer. "Admiral Collins wants our best pilot for a reconnaissance mission to the Zephyrian fleet." Tony suited up in his advanced flight gear and climbed into his scout ship, Star Runner. The ship was smaller than anything in Earth's fleet, but far more advanced, equipped with cloaking technology and sensors that could detect enemy ships from incredible distances. His mission was dangerous but simple. Get close to the Zephyrian fleet, gather intelligence about their capabilities and intentions, and return with information the colonial leadership needed to plan their next move. As Tony's ship left the launch bay and jumped to faster than light speed, Kate Williams was preparing for an even more challenging task. She was establishing contact with other alien species that the human colonies had encountered over the years. The colonies had maintained peaceful relations with the Andromedans, the Tau Ceti Republic, and several smaller civilizations. If the Zephyrians were planning to establish dominance over Earth, these other species needed to know what was happening. "This is colonial communications to the Andromedan embassy," Kate transmitted across interstellar space. "We have an urgent diplomatic situation involving the Zephyrian Collective and our home world. Please respond." Back on Haven Prime, Jack Turner was making preparations for something that had never happened before in colonial history. If the vote held and the colonies revealed themselves, they would need to make contact with Earth directly. That meant breaking protocols that had been in place since the first colony. Ship launched in 28-9. Dr. Bell was working on the technical challenges of contacting Earth without alerting the Zephyrians. "We'll need to use quantum communication channels that bypass normal space," she explained to Jack. "The signal will take several hours to reach Earth, but the Zephyrians won't be able to detect or intercept it." As night fell over Haven Prime, Jack stood again on his observation deck and looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, Earth was facing the biggest decision in human history without knowing that they had family among the stars. Soon, that would change. In a few hours, Earth would learn that humanity had been part of galactic civilization for 70 years. The Zephyrians would learn that the species they thought they could dominate had been watching them from a dozen hidden worlds. And the galaxy would discover that humans were far more capable and far more widespread than anyone had imagined. The secret was about to end, and everything would change forever. The message arrived at Earth's Deep Space Monitoring Station at exactly 0300 hours, transmitted on frequencies that should not have existed. Captain Roy Hansen was on duty aboard the International Space Station when his communication equipment suddenly came alive with signals that made no sense. "This is Colonial Fleet Command to Earth Defense Forces," the voice said in perfect English with an accent Roy had never heard before. "We are human vessels requesting immediate communication with Earth leadership. Repeat, this is the human colonial fleet." Roy stared at his console in disbelief. The signal was coming from beyond the orbit of Pluto, but the energy signature was definitely human technology. Advanced human technology that was far beyond anything Earth had ever built. "Kevin, are you getting this?" Roy called to his communications specialist. Kevin Price was already recording everything. "Captain, the signal is using quantum transmission protocols. We don't even have that technology yet. But the voice patterns and language structures are definitely human." Roy opened a direct channel to Admiral Morrison on Earth. "Admiral, you need to hear this. We're receiving transmissions from ships claiming to be human colonial vessels. They're asking to speak with Earth leadership." On Earth, Admiral Morrison was in an emergency meeting with President Carter and her top advisors when Roy's call came through. The president had been preparing to give the Zephyrians an answer to their offer, but this new development changed everything. "Put the signal through to this room," President Carter ordered. I want to hear this myself. The voice that came through the speakers was calm and professional. This is Admiral Pete Collins of the Colonial Fleet ship Voyager's Dream. I am requesting permission to approach Earth with a diplomatic mission. We have important information about the alien vessels currently in your vicinity. Helen Murphy leaned forward in her chair. Admiral Collins, this is Director Murphy of the Global Security Agency. Can you provide proof that you are who you claim to be? There was a brief pause, then Admiral Collins responded. Director Murphy, please check your classified files under Project Starway. Authorization code Delta 7 Alpha. You will find references to my ship and crew in documents from 2094. Helen quickly accessed her secure database and found exactly what Admiral Collins had described. The Voyager's Dream was listed as the flagship of the 7th Colonial Expedition, launched in 2094 under the command of then-Captain Pete Collins. My God, Helen whispered. They're real. The colonies are real. President Carter took control of the communication. Admiral Collins, this is President Carter. If you are truly representing human colonies, we need to meet immediately. The situation with the alien fleet is urgent. Understood, Madam President. We are prepared to decloak our ships and approach Earth, but I must warn you. This will likely provoke a response from the Zephyrian Collective. They have been deceiving you about the nature of this contact. Above Earth's atmosphere, space itself began to shimmer and bend. What had appeared to be empty space suddenly revealed dozens of ships that had been hidden by advanced cloaking technology. The colonial fleet vessels were sleek and powerful, clearly built for long-distance space travel and equipped with weapons that made Earth's defenses look primitive. The Zephyrian ships immediately went to high alert. Their commander had been expecting a simple negotiation with a primitive planet, not an encounter with advanced human technology that rivaled their own. Lieutenant Tony Rodriguez was piloting his scout ship near the Zephyrian fleet when the colonial ships decloaked. He had been gathering intelligence for 3 days, hidden by his ship's stealth systems. Now he watched as the alien vessels scrambled to respond to the sudden appearance of a human fleet. Colonial Command, this is Rodriguez, he transmitted. The Zephyrians are definitely surprised. Their ships are powering weapons and moving into defensive positions. Admiral Collins received Tony's report aboard the Voyager's Dream as his fleet approached Earth. All ships maintain peaceful formation but be ready for anything. We're about to find out how the Zephyrians react to discovering they're not the only ones with advanced technology. The Zephyrian ambassador demanded an immediate communication channel with Earth's leadership. When President Carter appeared on the screen, the alien's usual calm demeanor had been replaced by obvious anger. President Carter, the Zephyrian said, you have violated our first contact protocols by concealing the existence of advanced human technology. We were not informed that your species had achieved interstellar travel. That's because we weren't informed either, President Carter replied calmly. It seems there are things about humanity that both of our peoples are learning today. Dr. Nathan Brooks was studying the colonial ships through Earth's most powerful telescopes. The technology he was seeing revolutionized his understanding of what humans were capable of. The ships used power sources that Earth scientists had only theorized about, and their propulsion systems bent space-time in ways that should have been impossible. President Carter, Dr. Brooks said over the communication link, these ships are using technologies that are centuries ahead of anything we have on Earth. How is that possible? The answer came from Dr. Monica Bell, transmitting from Haven Prime. Colony. Dr. Brooks, we've had 70 years to develop new technologies, using resources and materials that don't exist on Earth. We've also learned from other alien species we've encountered during our expansion. This revelation shocked both Earth and the Zephyrians. The colonial humans had not only achieved interstellar travel, they had been interacting with other alien civilizations for decades. Ambassador Julie Martinez appeared on the communication screen from Admiral Collins' flagship. She was a woman in her 50s with gray hair and eyes that had seen wonders no Earth human could imagine. Madam President, Julie said, I represent the United Human Colonies. We are your descendants who left Earth 70 years ago to ensure humanity's survival. We have built 12 thriving worlds and maintained peaceful relations with several alien species. Why didn't you contact us before? President Carter asked. Because we followed protocols established by our founders, Julie explained. We were supposed to remain hidden unless Earth faced an existential threat. The Zephyrian deception qualifies as such a threat. The Zephyrian ambassador interrupted the conversation. These human colonies represent an illegal expansion into territory that belongs to established galactic powers. They must be removed or brought under proper supervision. Admiral Collins' voice cut through the diplomatic language like a blade. Ambassador, the human colonies have been in space for 70 years. We have treaties with the Andromedan Republic, trade agreements with the Tau Ceti Federation, and defense pacts with 6 other species. Our presence in this galaxy is well established and legally recognized. This statement caused panic in the Zephyrian fleet. They had approached Earth believing they were dealing with a single primitive world. Instead, they were facing an established human civilization that had allies and resources. Across multiple star systems. Kate Williams was coordinating communications between the colonial fleet and Earth when her sensors detected incoming transmissions from the Andromedan Republic. Admiral, we're receiving a priority message from our allies. The Andromedan ambassador appeared on screen, a tall being with blue skin and large, dark eyes. Admiral Collins, the Andromedan Republic wishes to express our support for our human allies. We have dispatched a diplomatic vessel to Earth to witness these proceedings. More alien ships began arriving in Earth's solar system, but these were friends of the human colonies. The Tau Ceti delegation, the silicon-based entities from Vega, and even representatives from the mysterious energy beings of the Outer Rim came to support humanity's position. The Zephyrian commander realized that what had seemed like an easy conquest was turning into a diplomatic nightmare. Instead of intimidating a primitive species, they were facing an established galactic power with numerous allies. Dr. Bell was working with Dr. Brooks to establish technical exchanges between Earth and the colonies. Dr. Brooks, we have medical technologies that could eliminate most diseases on Earth, energy systems that could end resource scarcity, and manufacturing techniques that could revolutionize your entire civilization. President Carter was overwhelmed by the rapid changes but determined to protect Earth's interests. Admiral Collins, Ambassador Martinez, what do you propose we do about the Zephyrian situation? We give them a choice, Admiral Collins replied. They can accept humanity as an equal partner in galactic civilization, or they can face the consequences of trying to deceive and manipulate an established galactic power. The Zephyrian ambassador was conferring with his fleet commander when their sensors detected more ships arriving. These were not diplomatic vessels. They were human warships from the colonial defense fleet, armed with weapons that could destroy Zephyrian vessels with ease. President Carter, the Zephyrian ambassador said, his voice now respectful rather than commanding, perhaps we should discuss new terms for our relationship. It appears we have underestimated humanity's position in galactic affairs. The battle lasted only 18 minutes, but it changed the course of galactic history forever. When the Zephyrian fleet opened fire on the colonial ships, they expected to face primitive human technology. Instead, they encountered weapons and defenses that had been refined through 70 years of space warfare and trade with advanced alien civilizations. Admiral Pete Collins stood on the bridge of Voyager's Dream and watched as his fleet responded to the Zephyrian attack with devastating efficiency. The colonial ships moved through space like dancers, their quantum drives allowing them to appear and disappear faster than the Zephyrian weapons could track them. All ships, focus fire on their command vessel, Collins ordered. Let's end this quickly. Lieutenant Tony Rodriguez was flying his scout ship through the battle zone, providing targeting data for the larger colonial vessels. His small ship was impossibly fast and maneuverable, dodging Zephyrian energy blasts while painting targets with his advanced sensors. Colonial Command, this is Rodriguez, he transmitted. The Zephyrian flagship is trying to retreat. Should I pursue? Negative, Tony, Admiral Collins replied. Let them go, we've made our point. On Earth, Admiral Morrison was coordinating the planet's defenses with technology that had been rapidly upgraded by the colonial fleet. In just a few hours, Earth's orbital stations had been equipped with shield generators and weapon systems that were decades ahead of anything they had possessed that morning. Captain Roy Hansen found himself commanding the International Space Station as it became the nerve center for Earth's new defensive network. The station had been transformed from a research facility into a military command post, connected to colonial ships through quantum communication links. Admiral Morrison, Roy reported, Earth's defensive grid is fully operational. The colonial upgrades are working perfectly. President Carter watched the battle from the White House Situation Room, surrounded by advisors who were still trying to understand how the world had changed so dramatically in just 1 week. Helen Murphy was coordinating intelligence with colonial sources, while Dr. Brooks worked with colonial scientists to understand the new technologies being shared with Earth. Madam President, Helen reported, the Zephyrian fleet is retreating beyond the orbit of Saturn. Our colonial allies report that they're sending distress signals to their home government. The battle ended when the surviving Zephyrian ships jumped to faster-than-light speed and fled the solar system. They left behind a changed galaxy where humanity was no longer seen as a primitive species to be guided or controlled, but as an established galactic power with advanced technology and powerful allies. Ambassador Julie Martinez coordinated the post-battle diplomatic efforts from her office aboard the colonial flagship. She had spent 30 years as a diplomat among alien civilizations, and she understood that winning a battle was only the beginning of winning a war. President Carter, Julie said during their secure communication, we need to establish formal diplomatic relations between Earth and the colonies as quickly as possible. The galaxy is watching how we handle this situation. Dr. Monica Bell was already working on the technical aspects of reuniting the two branches of humanity. Her team on Haven Prime was coordinating with Dr. Brooks on Earth to share 70 years of scientific advancement in the space of weeks rather than decades. Dr. Brooks, Monica explained during their video conference, we've developed medical technologies that could extend human lifespan to over 200 years. We have energy systems that could power Earth's entire civilization without any environmental damage. But integrating these technologies will take careful planning. The process of reunification began immediately. Colonial ships began arriving at Earth with supplies of rare materials that didn't exist in the home solar system. They brought medical equipment that could cure diseases Earth had struggled with for centuries, and manufacturing systems that could produce goods with zero waste. Kate Williams coordinated the massive communication effort required to connect Earth with 12 colonial worlds scattered across dozens of star systems. Her quantum communication network allowed instant contact across light years of space, something that seemed like magic to Earth scientists. Earth communications, this is colonial network control, Kate transmitted. We're establishing permanent communication links between Earth and all colonial worlds. From now on, no part of humanity will ever be isolated again. The Zephyrians returned 3 weeks later, but not as conquerors. Their new ambassador was an older, more experienced diplomat who understood that the balance of power had shifted completely. The Zephyrian government had received reports about humanity's true capabilities and had decided that cooperation was preferable to conflict. President Carter, Admiral Collins, the new Zephyrian ambassador said during the formal diplomatic meeting, the Zephyrian Collective wishes to apologize for our earlier deception. We would like to establish proper diplomatic relations with the United Human Federation. The United Human Federation had been created in the weeks following the failed Zephyrian attack. Earth and the 12 colonial worlds had agreed to form a single government that could represent all of humanity in galactic affairs. President Carter had been elected as the first president of the Federation. While Admiral Collins became the first admiral of the Federation fleet, the integration of Earth and colonial technology proceeded rapidly. Within 6 months, Earth had orbital manufacturing facilities that could build starships capable of traveling to other galaxies. The planet's energy needs were met by fusion reactors based on colonial designs, and medical centers equipped with colonial technology eliminated most diseases that had plagued humanity for millennia. Captain Roy Hansen was promoted to admiral and given command of Earth's first interstellar exploration fleet. His flagship was the New Horizon, a vessel that combined Earth's industrial capacity with colonial technology to create something more advanced than either civilization could have built alone. Admiral Hansen, President Carter said during the ship's commissioning ceremony, "Your mission is to explore beyond the known galaxy and establish contact with civilizations that even our colonial allies haven't encountered. Humanity's future lies not just among the stars we know, but among the stars we have yet to discover." Dr. Bell and Dr. Brooks established the Federation Science Institute, combining Earth's research capabilities with colonial knowledge to push the boundaries of what was possible. Their first project was developing technology that could allow faster-than-light communication across galactic distances, connecting humanity with allies throughout the galaxy. The colonial worlds shared their resources freely with Earth, while Earth provided the massive industrial capacity and population growth that the colonies needed to continue expanding. New colonial expeditions were launched every few months, carrying volunteers from both Earth and the existing colonies to establish new worlds. Even further from humanity's original home, Lieutenant Tony Rodriguez became the youngest captain in the Federation fleet when he was given command of the exploration vessel Star Runner. His mission was to map uncharted regions of space and locate suitable worlds for human colonization. "The galaxy is vast," Tony said during his departure ceremony, "but humanity is no longer confined to one world or even one star system. We are a galactic civilization, and our journey among the stars has only just begun." The Zephyrians proved to be valuable allies once they accepted humanity's true position in galactic affairs. They shared their knowledge of distant civilizations and helped establish trade routes that connected human space with the far corners of the galaxy. Other alien species that had been intimidated by Zephyrian expansion found new hope in humanity's example. The human colonies had shown that it was possible for a young species to grow and thrive without submitting to the dominance of older civilizations. A year after first contact, Earth's children looked up at the night sky with wonder, knowing that humans lived among those distant stars. Space elevators carried people to orbital stations where they could catch ships to colonial worlds that offered new lives and new opportunities. The secret that had lasted 70 years had finally ended, but it had revealed something greater than anyone had imagined. Humanity was not a single world waiting to join galactic civilization. Humanity was galactic civilization, spread across dozens of worlds and allied with species from across the galaxy. In the end, the Zephyrians had been right about one thing. Their arrival at Earth truly was first contact. But it wasn't first contact between humanity and the galaxy. It was first contact between the galaxy and the full extent of human achievement among the stars.